This is lesson 15, and now that we've made the inference that the 12-foot opening is a series of 4 3-foot window modules, we're going to start by the 3-4 and the 6-4 is a series of a single door module and a double door module respectively. We're going to start by developing the 3-foot window module. Right? It has a height component which is not listed here, so let's just add the height dimension there. So we're going to start, because all this geometry is grouped, we can draw on it. I'm not paying a lot of attention to where, let me just turn on the wall layer for a second. I'm not paying attention to where exactly within the thickness of the walls these guys live. We'll be able to set that afterwards, but for clarity's sake, I'm just leaving those layers off for now. So I'm going to start by drawing on that face a rectangle that is 3 feet wide, 6 feet in height, and I'm going to make that a component. And I'm going to call that component 3-foot by 6-foot height window module. Wouldn't normally be so crazy explicit with this, but this is to illustrate our point here. So if I double click this guy, it brings me into this sketch edit mode. I'm leaving the visibility on of the rest of the model so that I could develop this. So let's start by creating a frame for the window. Let's say the frame is 4 inches thick. I would use the offset tool. Oops. I'm just going to offset . Okay. And so that that shape is going to represent the outline of the window frame. This shape obviously is the profile of the glazing that would go in that window. If I cut it to the clipboard, I can bring it back later as paste it in place and use it to represent my glass. So what I'm doing now is developing. I'm going to give this some thickness. Let's call it 4-inch thickness. Let's turn off this X-ray mode. And now if I triple click this, I can group this geometry into a component and call it the window frame. So we're nesting a component within a component that we've already made. So if I go edit, make component, call it 3x6. Window frame. So now if I double click it, let's give it a material to distinguish it from other stuff. Wood would be fine. Select this cherry. Let's select everything about this and apply that. All right. It's important to get a sense of where you are in the process. So I'm within the window module component that I originally made, and now I am in the frame, which is a nested component in that module, right? So when I close this component, I'm still in the window component. Let's bring back edit, paste in place the outline of the window glazing itself. Double click it, should highlight 5 faces, 5 entities, the 4 edges and the face. And now I'm going to make this a component. Make component. 3x6 glazing panel. It's not exactly 3x6 in height. It's the difference of the the frame, but that's fine. So now when I double click it, I can assign transparency or translucent material to it. So let's choose this. Let's choose this green because we haven't yet used it. Dark green. I'm not sure that I like that, but we'll live with that. So now when I close that component, I'm closing the glazing component. Now when I close this component, I've closed the module. So what have I done here? I've created one of these. Let's pull it aside in this direction 5 feet, just so that we can examine it. Select this. This is a 3x6 foot height window module. It is composed of, double click, a 3x6 glazing panel and a 3x6 window frame. If you can understand that, that is sufficient to model anything you need to model that is an assembly in SketchUp. If I bring this back, move it back in this direction 5 feet, it is exactly where it needs to be. If I created a layer called Windows and then a layer called Doors, I can control the visibility of these guys. So this would be my strategy here. Let's start creating a layer called Window. Let's be explicit. Window Assemblies. let's push the component I just created to that layer of window assemblies. So now I could turn off the openings or turn off the layer window assembly. Right. So how is that significant? Well, it means that now I could start taking that window assembly component and ganging it together into other assemblies. Component. I wouldn't normally work in this abstract mode, but it's useful for us to understand where we are. Okay, so if I place this at an endpoint here, I'm going to rotate it into place. Use the arrow key. To take that and rotate it 90. Type that explicitly. Okay, so now that's the correct orientation. It's not in the right place where I want it, but I can move it into place. And then duplicate it. Tap the control key. Okay, so my remember, I'm still drawing on layer 0, so these guys, that's where these guys are. So now these two can become a group, and I can replicate that. So let's go ahead and group this. Make it a group. I can also assign a name to that group. It's a group of two 3x6 height window modules. Right? But if I go to the, for instance, if I go to the outliner, and select this, I can rename it. Two up 3x6 windows. Oops. Didn't mean to select all that. Let me pause it. So I simply undid. I should have been more careful selecting just the 3x6 height window module. So select those two and group those two. Edit, make group, and you can see in this in the outliner I can rename this group and call it my 2 gang 3x6 windows. So now I can copy that. Use the Move Copy tool. Let's drag it from an inside endpoint so we can snap it to, tap the Control key, and I'm going to align it there. All right. So now, see the outliner is reporting that we have a second instance of that. How do we deal with the 4 up? Well, it's pretty simple now because I've already got this single module. Let's firstly take these 2 groups and put them on our window assemblies layer. So I've got this module. There's a couple ways I could deal with it. I could call it. I could call the 4 gang windows a group of 2 gang windows, or 4 single windows. Let's do that so we don't confuse the issue. I'm going to tap, make a copy of this, and rotate it into place. So this way, 90. And let's just move this to the end. From there to there, to that endpoint. Now it's simply a matter of moving 3 copies. 1, 3x. And that's my group of 4, which I can select. Let's look at the outliner to see what happens. So I have 4 single one of those. Edit, make group. So that group now can be renamed four gang. Uh, 3 by 6. And I can take that module, which is a group of 4 windows, tap the Control key and copy it to this other instance. We need something to snap to, so I should have copied it from the other end. Let's do it here. So we can, there we go, let's snap to that endpoint. Remember, this is on the reverse side of that face, so I should move it out the thickness of, well, technically I'd want to flip it, right? Because the glazing for the window is not centered within the door frame, the window frame. But it is symmetrical the window frame's symmetrical. So if I move it on the green axis 4 inches, and then modify that module, and because this will modify every instance of the single window, and I move it two inches in that direction. Now the window glazing panel is centered within the assembly, and every instance thereof is going to be there. So what have I done? I've leveraged, by recognizing a single module and designing to it, I'm able to repeat that module in the various assemblies that are in which that module is a component. So I'm going to take a few steps to sort of complete every instance of that window and just describe it while I do it. So here we're just going to take that group and repeat it. Remember, it's symmetrical. Tap the control key, put it where it belongs. Make a copy of it, tap the control key, put it, align it there. We need a single window over here. Doors are made the same way, right? It's simply a matter of, let's grab it by this outside edge, and then tap the control key, and that's in the right place. And let's make sure that all of these are on the correct layer. So I'm going to hide the openings layer and just make sure I'm holding the control key that all these assemblies I just created are pushed to the window assemblies there. Right. So walls, all of these guys are now flush with the exterior face of walls. Probably beyond the scope of this discussion, but depending on the type of construction, if this were a brick veneer, a lot of that sill, that window sill, would be to the exterior of the window. It depends on the type of construction. If it's light wood, typically more sill on the interior of the window. So when we create the door assembly, we will do it in this fashion. We create the overall height, which we'll learn is 80 inches, 6'8", and the overall width is 3/4, but that 3/4 includes the door frame. So I have to keep that in mind. We'll do that in a separate lesson because it's not quite as easy as doing a window, because you have the condition at the sill where it has to actually meet the ground, so it's not a complete frame. Okay, good enough for the window opening module.